This week I went down memory lane. I went to my hometown where I grew up as a young boy. I grew up in Windsor, within eyesight of the castle, and you can see the flag in the tower, which would indicate whether or not Her Majesty the Queen was in or not. And I recall every morning bursting into my sister's bedroom so I could have a look out the window and see if the flag was up or not. So I got up really early, managed to walk the dogs, had some breakfast, and looking at the weather, I decided not to take the dogs. I thought it could be inclement, not a word I've used for a while. And my thinking was, wet dogs in a cafe, having something to eat or drink, not very good company, particularly driving back in the car. So the dogs were left at home, locking the door. I chose the hat. Well, before I locked the door, chose the hat, and then promptly left it in the kitchen. Told the dogs, having locked the door, I'd be back. I'm always back. It's kind of a thing I have, really. Of course, dogs don't speak English. They've got no idea what I'm talking about. Got in the car, went and picked up my mate, but one of my best mates. Known each other, 12 years? Great fun, great companion. And this was, I think, the first of our adventures. She also grew up in Windsor. So, small world, you know. Must have been 10, 11 years we met. And we decided to go to Windsor, because that's where she grew up. Driving down the M4 eastbound, I realised, where are my dogs? Down there. I realised I hadn't driven that way for a very long time. But as I drove down, my mind was running through short movies of memories of what it was like growing up there. Names came to mind that I hadn't mentioned before, either to myself in my internal monologue or with others. I couldn't wait. I wanted to see where I'd come from. A bit like a wild salmon, I suppose. They get born in a river somewhere, and then they go off and travel the oceans, and they come back to breed. I wasn't going back to breed. Anyway, I've made my way back to Bournemouth, to Windsor, after all these years. And as we came off the motorway, I was saying to myself, where is it? Where have I got to go? Trying to remember the route. Anyway, it turned out the route I was going to take was completely wrong. I'd have ended up in the arse end of nowhere. Thank heavens for satellite navigation as opposed to a fading memory of moments gone by. I chuckled to myself at the first roundabout, thinking that Len, the school bus driver, he never got lost. And I remember being picked up from school on the bus, and Len was there, and we would all say, "Hello, Len," and he'd say hello back. And 15, 20 minutes later, we'd all get off and say, "Thanks, Len," and away we'd go. He'd be dead now. He'd be dead now. But he was the first male figure who wasn't part of the family. First male adult that had an imprint on my mind. And I always remember him smiling. I think he had a uniform on or a shirt with epaulets. I might be wrong. When we look back, we don't always have the right memory. We have our own one that we've manufactured for whatever reasons. The first destination was to go to my old school, which was just down the road from where my friend grew up. Mrs. Jett was the head mistress there. And I remember 9 or 10, when I was leaving, she did say to me and my mum, "You're welcome back any time. If you're passing by, come on in." And I thought fondly of this woman. Can't remember what she looked like. Can't remember the sound of her voice. Mrs. Jett, that is, not my mum. And I've lost my dog. Harvey. Here he comes. Come on. Yes. Good puppy. Anyway, get to the school and looking to drive in. And of course, in the modern world, school gates are locked. I think it was just a barrier when I was a child, but now you have gates. And I thought, oh, obviously I can't go in. And I could see just on the other side of the gate where the field would have been, where sports day was held. But it's all built up there. There was different buildings that I don't remember. And I looked further down and there was like so you had the infant school, then the junior school was down the end as well. I didn't like junior school. I never fitted in. I didn't fit in there. Anyway, Mrs. Jett's name came to mind, and also Miss Cuthbertson. She was my class teacher. I remember her being a little Scottish lady who reminded me of Ronnie Corbett in size, stature, and the way she spoke. She always looked out for me, and I appreciated her education of this young mind. Leaving the school, drove past the school church, drove past the church where I went to infants, and this is like preschool. I don't think we called it nursery, probably, where I used to be a milk monitor, and this was attached to the church, and they had a big climbing frame. Bear with me. Teddy! Come on! A big climbing frame where you play all kinds of games. Like, I'm the king of the castle. There were some bikes that we'd ride as well. But this church is where we'd go every Sunday. And this church is where the priest would come from to do mass at school. This church had its own nursery, which is where we went. But it's also where Len dropped us off. I get off, thanks Len, and I'll go and stand at the corner. And other mums and dads would pick their kids up, and I'd wait for my mum or dad to come down and get me. We lived just around the corner. And she was often there, but occasionally she'd be late. And I'd be the only one waiting. I never got upset. I knew she'd be back. I knew she'd come and get me. One time she did forget. She absolutely forgot. Which she denied, but she forgot. Anyway, we drove and we parked up at this church. And I wanted to go in. I wanted to go and see where my first confession, my Holy Communion. I wanted to go and smell the church and hear the echoes of prayers long gone. I wanted to stand on the spot that I remember for my communion. It was all locked. I couldn't get in. Like the school, rules have changed. The church was locked. I thought about going to knock on the priest's house, but that looked empty. And the church hall, club, whatever it was, that was shut down as well. Back in the car, drove to see my house where I grew up. My first memory of being in a pram with my reins on, where I'd have a bath in the sink in the kitchen, learning to ride a bike, learning how to swim, trying to kill my sister. Sadly, I failed. I was only 3, but never mind. I'll talk about that another day. There were 3 days I tried to kill my sister, all under the age of 10. Parked up and we saw this house, and it turned out that my friend, her best mate from school, lived in my old house. It was like, what? We parked up and all the car park had changed, the cottage had gone. And I got kind of remorse, whatever the word, sad. The house had changed. It was smaller than I remembered, a lot smaller. The front garden had parking for 2 cars. I played a lot of football in that garden. Oh, dog's going mental. And I noticed they had an extension. There were more windows. And I wondered if that new window, if that could see the flag to represent His Majesty's occupation. I remembered a party that was there. It was a summer. And all the kids were there, and you had all your sweet and savouries, and then, not sweets, all your savouries and sandwiches, then your sweets. And all running around. I went out to Mum for a cuddle, and she's holding me. And then I remember to this day, she said, "Michael, I'm going to have to put you down. You're too heavy now. I can't carry you." So I got down. I was a bit upset then. I thought, what if this is my last cuddle? And this week, remembering that moment, I can only remember 2 cuddles afterwards. They were good cuddles. I'm sure there were many others, but there were only 2 that stood out. I loved living in that house. I loved the school run with Len. I loved the teachers. Miss Campbell, the lady who taught me how to read with the long brunette hair. I remember she had a white roll neck ribbed top and over her spectacular bosoms. And she was my first crush. She was the first woman I kissed. She was asking me to read Peter and Jane or Janet and John, whatever the book was. And I remember looking at her going, "Oh." And I leant in and I just kissed her on the lips. Taken aback, she said, "Thank you, Michael. Please carry on reading." So I did. And Janet picks up the ball. There was a girl called Alison and her friend Siobhan. They were great. And I've just forgotten the bloke's name. The boy, I can't remember his name. Anyway, the four of us used to play loads. All sorts of games, all innocent fun. We parked up and I sought out the white shop and the red shop. These were the toy shops which, you know, you could go to. And every now and again you'd get a present from them. Obviously, the shops are gone. The colouring anyway. The buildings were still there, but the actual units. And I thought about all the children with their dreams when they looked through that window at those toys back then. This is before your Marshall Ward catalogue. My first Action Man came from there. Then we went to the river, and I looked at the river and all the swans. I remember the babysitter, Beverly, with long hair again. She would come and look after us on the occasions Mum and Dad would go out. And she lived just under the arches, down one of the side roads there, and walked down that road of memories. And walking along the riverbank, that was fun. Oh, by the way, puppy, this way. Come on. Come on, yes. And then we strolled back up to the castle. And we went up the hill, past the pub, to a Chinese restaurant that used to be called the Black Swan, which was the first restaurant I ever went to. That had gone, replaced with something else. Walking down High Street, went into a really fancy charity shop where I bought this amazing sheepskin coat. It really made me chuckle when I saw it, and I put it on and it fitted. Now, sheepskin coats are so unfashionable. They're so dated, they're so old. I just had to have it. And I walked around Windsor with it because I couldn't put it in a bag. Like a pimp. I looked a right state. I took a photograph and sent it to my mates. And one of them referred to as flashbacks to 1984, which is when we last wore them. And another mate said, crikey, you don't look like Del Boy. You look more like Rodney, his younger, lanky brother. So that was fun. Then, having had a wonderful day there, sharing memories of people. Oh, Kate Brophy, my elocution teacher. She lived just over the back gate of my home. Obviously, she would have moved on. She taught me how to speak properly, how to enunciate my words. She would have moved now. Some wonderful people, some wonderful times, some wonderful memories, and some of them fuzzy. Maybe some of them I've created, but they're my memories. And the thing is, like the school gates, my old school, the church, when it's locked down, you can't get in. My memories are locked in. I will change them over time because I will reinvent unconsciously, subconsciously, the story. I'll add little nuances, maybe a bit more colour, a bit more brightness. But it'll be different from how I remembered it this week. So the good times are there and they're locked down. I can't go back. And I remembered some bad stuff, some bad memories. And I realised, walking back to the car, the bad memories are also locked down. You can't change them. You might reinvent them. But the fact is, that's a memory. It's gone. They've gone. They're not going to come back. It's meant to be there in the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s. Even yesterday. I was talking with my friend at the end about artificial intelligence. And I said, eventually, we're not going to need a body. It will all be non-human. And I challenged ourselves to, what do we need a body for? We need it for hugs. We need more hugging in the world. We need more cuddles on a regular basis. We need not worry about, is this the last hug, the last cuddle I'll ever have? There will be more cuddles and there will be more hugs. If you don't think so, look me up, come and see me. I'll give you a hug and I'll hug you for 20 seconds. Minimum hug time, 20 seconds. So, with your memories, your memory lane, what hat would you wear? Who's your Len? Who's your Miss Cuthbertson? Who's your Miss Jet? Who's Kay Brophy? Who's your Miss Campbell? Maybe go and visit them, if you can physically. Go to those spaces and find the locked down memories. Yeah, and have a hug. Have a hug where you can. But at the very least, dig out a dodgy sheepskin coat. Have fun.